absolutely beautiful astrology soulmates, and welcome back to our channel. This is our channel. If you're part of the Soulmate Family Tribe, welcome back. If you are new to us, we would always love to have you in the tribe. And we talk about astrology here in many different forms and many different explorations. We are just here exploring the mysteries of the cosmos and the profound ways that they do impact our lives and how we can work with them. So today I'm excited because it's not common. We don't do this here very often, but we're going to delve into some of the fascinating information about astrocartography, which is a tool that unveils a lot of hidden connections that I didn't even know were there. And I'm a practicing professional astrologer between what's going on in the sky, the energies, the planets, the alignments, geographical locations, and how that impacts you. Now, some of you may know that I've recently made a really significant move with my entire family. We moved from the United States to Spain, and why, when, what are the energies around that? How does the astrology align with that? So I wanted to delve into that journey with you today and discuss some of the astrocartography, but better than that, I brought us an expert to help us do that. So to add the depth and the weight to our discussion, Miss Martha Clarke, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me, Stormie. It's a delight to be here. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I'm going to just say it from the beginning of the video. You could talk about lint or cheese or grocery shopping with that accent. And I'm gonna listen to the whole thing.
When I lived in the States, I often think my Irish accent is why I did so well.
Yeah, well,
I would
listen,
have people 20 minutes into a consultation still talking about their great grandmother from Mayo. And I'd be looking at my watch saying, I'm supposed to be talking about your rising sign, you know?
well, as an American, I just want to say I fully understand. It's just it's warm, it's welcoming, it's inviting. There's just something about the accent that is beautiful, but also to say Martha is an absolutely seasoned professional astrologer with a wealth of knowledge in astrocartography. So she's going to share her expertise today, shed light on this subject, and we're going to also look at some charts so you can see how it works here. Now, if you happen to be one of our friends in the Soulmate Tribe that is interested in astrocartography, you want to study, you want to even look in your own life and say, where are the best locations for me to live, to work, to visit, to get things done? Martha also offers beautiful packages for relocation services, right? So you've got your creative relocation package.
Mhm.
And tell us a little bit what happens in the package. What can you do with
What
that?
happens in the package? I started moving to 6 session packages a couple of months ago because I was feeling kind of frustrated when people were just having single sessions. Because very often, as you probably know, people wanted to jump straight to the astrocartography and they would say, oh, I had my natal chart done. I don't really want to have it done again. And then they'd come to me and it might have been 10 years since they had their natal chart done. But the creative relocation package, it's 6 sessions that you can time yourself to have whenever suits you. So the first one is the natal chart, which is an overview of your natal chart, which, as you know, it's the lessons your soul came into this lifetime to learn and experience. Then I'll do 2 transit charts. And the transit charts are hugely important because it's usually the transits that you're going through that trigger the desire to relocate. Then I do a solar return chart. And as you know, the solar return chart is when the sun goes back to its natal place in your chart. But the personal planets and the outer planets are usually in different houses for the year. So it's kind of like your solar return chart then is like what your inner longing and your inner message and your inner soul wants to do for the year. Whereas transits are very much triggered by outside events. And then after that is followed by 2 relocated sessions, including astrocartography. So the whole idea behind the 6 session package is at the end of the 6 sessions, you can empower yourself to relocate wherever you want, whenever you want, without necessarily needing to come back to me. It's kind of like the whole package. Because I really wanted to empower people to make the decisions themselves based on their transits as opposed to just jumping straight to the astrocartography. So it's working really well because people do, want to work at a deeper level. And certainly I have found in the last 2 years, people very often just relocate temporarily for 4 weeks, then they come back, then they relocate somewhere else, then they make the big jump. Or else, I work a lot with couples. So what's happened a lot as well is that like one person will go ahead and the other person will stay behind and then follow at a later stage.
That makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
I think a lot about just in general, we won't, fully unpack this, but this movement of Pluto to
Yeah.
Aquarius, I think, has
Yeah.
really given rise to a new permission to be nomadic again and to go where we are treated best or where the energy is best aligned. But it's just like this is where astrology gets really, really sexy because
Oh,
we
yeah.
do all the same things that a psychotherapist, psychoanalyst can
Yeah.
do. We are doing all the same things that you going on vacation could do, but we do it faster because we're
Way
like,
faster.
hey, look, you've got
We
to
don't make
be
you have a session a week for 2 years where you talk about what your parents did to you. And that's the
absolutely.
beauty about astrology, as you probably know yourself. It empowers you to make decisions based on who you really are, not on who your parents think you are, not on what society wants you to be, not on the job that somebody else thinks you should have.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of the other reasons, and particularly in the last 2 years, I have found that time and time again, people are relocating for one of three reasons. They want a
Mm.
deeper sense of connection, they want a more spiritual life, or they want a deeper sense of home. They're always the three reasons. It's never about more money. It's never about the big job. It's never about the big house. It's always to do with spirituality or creativity or a deeper sense of home. So that's what the relocation does as well. It really helps people access their creativity and move to more creatively supportive parts of the world.
That is brilliant and it's beautiful. And I love the way that you covered what we're really looking for because I've definitely found that as well as, we think at the surface that I want to or I need to make more money. And it's like, well, when the soul calling is really there and we can click down to that root thing, we're usually going for this and we solve that kind of root issue and the
Yeah,
rest, sorts itself out. But also let's do it with a little bit more gusto and
yeah,
say, what's a better place to help me
yeah,
unfold. You know what I mean? I
yeah.
stopped taking my car when it broke down to the dentist a long time ago. Let's work smarter, not harder, friends, right? This is really what astrology has to offer. So brilliant. So just to get capped in here so that people can kind of understand, can you tell us a little bit about what astrocartography does in the first
Yeah.
place?
Yeah, well, the first thing you do is you do a relocated chart, which surprising number of astrologers don't actually do. But the relocated chart is where you regenerate somebody's birth chart as if you've been born in the new location. So different houses will have different emphasis, and the aspects between the planets will stay the same, but very often there's new aspects generated, the ascendant or the descendant or the midheaven or the IC. So, somebody might have, the sun in the 10th house, which means that, they're generally very visible, very public. In the new location, maybe the sun might be in the 4th house, which means, that they're actually instinctively looking for a deeper sense of home and they want more to shine at home. Or, their Mercury might move from their first house, which is all about, their own communication, to the 11th house, which is about how they communicate more with others. Then we move to the astrocartography, and the planetary lines then have radiuses of between 17 and 135 miles, which is huge. And a lot of the free software out there doesn't do astrocartography any services because a lot of the free software, it'll just say, Venus on the ascendant, but it doesn't say, is Venus trining it, which is a flow of energy? Is Venus squaring it, which is, yes, the energy's there, but you have to work at it? Is Venus sextiling it, which is, yes, it's harmonious. So, I also work a lot with the minor aspects, such as noviles and septiles and quintiles. Like a novile will have a range of 34 miles and indicates magic. A septile will be kind of an internal type of creativity. And I find septiles and quintiles and noviles hugely important if you're looking for people's creativity or to help them access it. So again, people will think that Venus lines are about love and seduction, but Venus lines are also about how you're valued. They're also about your creativity. If somebody's looking for a sense of home, then we would look at their moon line.
Mm.
Very often, and then going back to what I said about like it's the transits that are very often driving the desire to relocate. I had a couple there last year that thought they wanted to move from Switzerland to California for the wife's job. And when I looked at both their charts, they were going through huge Neptune transits. So I was able to say, well, actually, you need to be going to a Neptune part of California because really you're seeking a more soulful life, you're seeking a more spiritual life. So, what I do is I will narrow down the lines in people's charts, because you tend to be looking for maybe 3 lines that are trines or 3 lines that are conjunctions, because that's where there's a very powerful flow of energy for people to relocate. But the relocated chart is equally important, as you know yourself. We talked about yours just earlier.
Yeah.
As the
And so
relocated chart will tell you what houses are being activated, which is as important as the planetary lines.
And so, just for clarity, in case some of our people are new or this is a new concept to you, to do the relocated chart, you still want all of the same information. You'll simply
Absolutely, yeah,
change the
absolutely, yeah,
location
yeah,
that you're attempting to
yeah,
relocate to.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And
So,
that's why the birth time is so important.
small question here, which this is just me thinking. Do you want to create the relocated chart of the place you want to go to, or do you want to create the relocated chart once you're there?
Well, that's a brilliant question. People usually create it before they go, because the thing is, there's always a sole reason why you're drawn to a place. Like, even if you don't go somewhere that you've always been drawn to, you'll tend to find that you love singers from that area, or that you love artists from that area, or you love writers from that area. That tends to be how astrocartography would play out in other ways. Like, for example, Tennessee Williams and James Joyce would be, we're having a look at their charts later. They're 2 writers that I've been hugely drawn to, and then you can see a resonance between their charts and mine.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And through the lens of evolutionary astrology,
Yeah,
we really can unpack a lot about maybe what was even going on in potential past lives,
yeah,
to
yeah,
those draws to those
yeah.
areas. I know that I've had a couple places come up for me where it felt really I felt very connected to it, but I also felt a sense of sadness. And I realized that a
Oh,
part
nice.
of my past life story astrologically is that I was a translator. And so being in places where I don't have access to a lot of language gives me a
All
deep
right.
sense of sadness. So most of the places that I found that I was drawn to were heavy multi-language places.
And
Is
for
that
somebody
interesting?
who's got Gemini on the midheaven, that would be hugely important for you, and whose
Huge.
chart is ruled by Gemini, because, in the new place, the relocated descendant is a new way of being seen in the world. The relocated midheaven will have a new vocation. Very often, you'll bring out a new vocation in the new location. The relocated descendant is a new way of bringing others into your life. The relocated IC then is your new sense of home. So the 4 angles, because basically astrocartography is all about how the lines form angles to the 4 aspects of your chart. It really is as simple as that.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so if someone wants to just get started, they're not sure if they want to invest in packages and readings and things like that, where's the best place for someone to just get started besides YouTube? Speaking of YouTube, you guys, please subscribe and like this video. Okay, where
Well,
should
they
they
can
go?
always book a free call with me if they want to know more. They can always sign up to my newsletter, or I have a ton of free content on my website. I mean, I blog every second week. So I have blogs on all the planetary lines. I have a blog on Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, Jupiter, the moon, the sun, the whole lot. So if you go to the blog section, that will give you as much information as you need about the planetary lines and what to expect. I have a blog on the relocated descendant, midheaven, and IC as well. And then I also post on Instagram 3 times a week. I will do like videos. I will do like short clips on like what to expect with the new moon and the full moon, for example. And then I have a lot of free clips on Instagram as well about astrocartography.
Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. Do you have any book suggestions for people?
Not really, because the books are more advanced, So if I was to recommend the 2 books that are out there, they're really for people that have studied astrocartography already, which is why I write the blogs, because the blogs are written at a layman's level. And then if
Mm.
anybody wants to contact me by email, it's info@marthaclarkastrology.com. I can send them a free copy of my chart interpretation guide. Or also, if they sign up to my on my website, there's also a drop-down menu where they can get a free copy of my moon book, because the moon in your chart is very strongly linked not just to home, but also to your vocation, which a lot of people don't realize.
That's brilliant. Okay. Well, if you're interested, this is piquing something in you, because it's always important to me to not only talk about the astrology, but bring you in alignment with people who are experts in their field and who are teaching this. And this is where Martha is specializing. So if you're feeling the call here, go visit. Go visit, like this video, comment, share, subscribe, and then go visit Martha and let's support the work. Okay, Martha, I did it. I packed up the whole clan and moved to Spain. And
Wow.
we've been waiting. We've been waiting to do this video and this content to look at the astrocartography of it
Mhm.
and to answer the question that I've been asked 100 times in this move. I did not start with the astrocartography in the move.
Right.
For
Right.
me, it was an absolute light up of my personal being and spirit
Wow.
by transits that
Yeah.
said, go. And one of them that we'll talk about was having the experience with a particular transit where, oh, I'm even getting teary talking about it. But I said to my husband, if I do not leave the United States, I will die here. And I
You were
knew
saying
I
that. Yeah.
had to go. Right.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
now there's the answer. Did I start with astrocartography?
No,
0%.
no, no.
0%, right? But
It,
now we're going to look into what happened, and Martha's going to.
well, I had a look at the transits you were going through because it was June of last year that you moved, wasn't it?
It was.
So in early June, you had Jupiter opposed Jupiter by transit, and Jupiter, as we know, is all about expansion and abundance and traveling. So Jupiter opposing itself is like a push-pull to expand. You also had Uranus opposing Ceres. You had three hits to that in June. So Uranus is all about genius and innovation and being your eclectic, authentic self. And then Ceres, as we know, is linked to nurturing around land and family. And in your relocated chart, we can see that your Ceres is angular on your ascendant. So Ceres was playing a big part there, you know, as well as Uranus in your transits. And then you also, interestingly enough, the big one was Uranus was sesqui squaring your moon. Now, I think in the States, you don't always use semi-squares and sesqui squares. They're like a third and an eighth of a square. But Uranus on the moon is like, I gotta move. I gotta move home. You know, because Uranus transits, and you know, if anybody here is listening who's gone through Uranus transits, they're very impersonal, they're very immediate. It's
Yeah.
just like that. I became an astrologer overnight when Uranus was aspecting my Saturn. So Uranus on your moon is like, gotta move, gotta find a new sense of home.
Yeah. And it was, I also had a really nice connection in terms of going back just a little bit more time. The nodal story came back for me so that you guys can understand that as well. The last time that the nodes were doing the Aries Libra dance in my chart, I had intended to leave the United States, head to Europe, become a translator. I got a big piece of that in my story and live my best life. Okay. I was headed out.
Yeah.
And I was going to Aries, that side of the journey. And I ended up Libraing and having my oldest daughter.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And
Wow.
it was interesting in full form when my oldest daughter, turned 18 years old on her birthday. I felt like, the hot air balloons, they tether them down to the ground.
Mhm.
And when she turned 18, to the moment, I felt like all of these strings
Well,
were.
that's like almost like a nodal return for you because the nodal returns are every 19 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And I knew it and I knew it and I could feel it. And this is the reason that when I talk and I teach and I bring people, I'm like, make the astrology real. Where can you hear
Yeah.
your planet? Where can you hear your
Yeah.
cycle in your body? And
Yeah.
that's what it was very much so like for me. And at a OPA, at an astrology conference just before this, Uranus hit my sun and I was like, whoop. And that was it.
Well, because the
See,
other thing I do is I look at transits going across the astrocartography, and you had the nodes trining your midheaven just 2 weeks before you moved. Because when you do the planets across the actual astrocartography, the personal planets just zip across really fast. The outer planets are really slow, but the nodes would be slow enough. So you had the North Node trining your midheaven, which is very much your soul calling towards, you know, being more visible in your vocation. You also had Jupiter trining your midheaven as well, which again is an expansion of how you are out in the world.
yeah.
And
Well,
as we know, your new midheaven in Seville is ruled by Virgo. So Gemini is still ruling your midheaven, and your natal chart, you've Gemini on your midheaven. And we talked about the fact that you're Scorpio rising in the new place, which is very much deeply, intensely transformative, and that Uranus moves into your first house, which is interesting given that Uranus, as I said, was sesqui squaring your moon when you moved. Um, So that's, I just want a new sense of home, and it just happens out of the blue. Did you find the place to live quite easily as a matter of interest? Did that take
absolutely.
long?
No, it absolutely did not. And in fact, because I wanted to work on my citizenship by descent to Germany, since that's where my family is from,
Okay.
and it was as things were unfolding, I was like, oh, I have to go to Spain. I have to go to Seville, Spain, which of the travels that I've done to Spain, I had not been to Sevilla, and I had no real sense of I need to go to Seville. My thinking process would have been to go to Barcelona or to Madrid, right? And I was like, we have to go to Seville. And we booked tickets. We came and we stayed for a month to see if we could live and we could work. And
Yeah.
then we come back to the United States, and that was it. And it was, I mean, Seville was not on my radar.
Fascinating.
Yeah,
And yet there you are with Venus in your fourth house in your new location, which is like, I love everything about home here. And Neptune is ruling your IC in the new location as well, which is fascinating. It's like, yeah, new home, new expanded, dreamy sense of home. Do
yeah.
you think
So
you'll stay there for a couple of years? Are you going to be there for good or for a couple of years? Or I think you said you're going to be going over and back.
yeah, be going over and back a bit just because my parents are still there. But for me, when someone asks me that question is, are you going to come back to live in the United States? It's a whole scale no. It's
Right.
just, it lights. But I also really can flash back, you guys. So this is why I ask you to pattern track as well. Go
Yeah.
back to your nodal moments, because
Yeah,
in the nodal
absolutely.
moment where I was going to be booking accommodations, tickets, and my new life forward before I found out I was pregnant, So for me, it really is the other side of the nodes this time, and I can feel it. So there will have to be a very strong transit reason, something like that, to bring me back to the
Yeah.
United States to stay, because
Yeah.
I can't. But this is me today, right? I make a lot of space with my astrology. I'm like, this is me today. So today, no. But I want to take just a second in case anyone is a little lost in the sauce as to what's actually on the screen and what we're looking at.
You can
Just,
see that there, can you?
yeah,
Okay, well, you can see here your natal chart is Virgo rising, and then your relocated chart, your Scorpio rising. You can see then that, your Sun, Chiron, and Mercury move from your ninth and 10th house over here to your sixth and seventh house. So the Sun, Chiron moving to the sixth is very much who shines through being of service. You have then, your Moon, Pluto, and Saturn moving from your second house to your 11th house. So there's a much stronger sense of feeling nurtured by being out in the collective, because the moon is how we nurture ourselves. And as I said, the moon is linked to our vocation. So in your new chart here, Libra rules your 11th house. So Venus rules your 11th house, which is very much, you feel valued by being out there in the world, and that you're much more visible out in the world. The other interesting one then is that Neptune moves from your fourth in your natal chart to your second. So Neptune in your second is very much like a dreaminess and a highly spiritual aspect around your movable talents and skills. And then again, as we talked about the nodes, your north node in the second is like, you're really comfortable with your movable talents and skills where you are now. And yet the lesson of the node, given as I said that the North Node was trining your midheaven when you moved to Seville. The North Node in the eighth is very much that lesson is around developing the skill to be with others on a one-to-one basis without necessarily losing yourself in that. And then the other big one, we talked about Ceres, Ceres being angular on the ascendant, is that there's a theme around the fact that you'd be bringing people into your life that want you to nurture them and nourish them more than usual, because Ceres is linked to nurturing around land and family. And when a planet is angular, you know, the energy of that planet is hugely expanded. So your Ceres is blending with the Scorpio energy on the ascendant. So like your Pluto is embodied with a very strong sense of Ceres. So it becomes actually a very nurturing Pluto. It's not just a deeply transformative sense of who you are. It's a very nurturing sense of who you are as well, that you kind of just want to bring everybody together and nurture them, which is
Yeah.
beautiful.
And it's interesting the way that this is unfolding in the relocated chart, because a piece of
Yeah.
the I have to get out of the United States or I'll die was in alignment with other timing for me. But the deep understanding of this relocated chart without having done the chart is that I was also entering the state of perimenopause. And has taken a huge hit to my perceived self-worth and value on a day-to-day basis, these kinds of things, right? It's
Yeah.
huge. It's very Chiron in Taurus vibration in the sixth
Yeah.
house. So now
Yeah.
that even the daily sense of how I care for myself has not been as simplified as I would like it to be, lots of
Okay.
questions of what makes me valuable? And what is my worth? Because
Mhm.
listen, if you're part of my viewers that are here and you've gone through this, that sense of
Yeah.
like, well, what's the point of me has been a real question. And
Yeah.
100% of women go through menopause. So, okay, cool. But having that experience here, what I knew I needed was to be someplace where my femininity was not in question at all.
Well, there's your angular Ceres and how it
Yeah.
plays out, which is fascinating. You know, and the other transit you were going through when you moved was Uranus was conjunct Chiron. So that can bring a theme around alternative healing. I mean, do you find the whole perimenopause journey is easier in Seville because of a different way of eating and a different lifestyle?
I find it in multiple ways. One, what I
Okay.
needed, I have lots of Libra in my chart, as you can see. I need a lot
Yeah.
of mirrors. I need to see what's happening to me outside of me. And so
Mhm.
the first round of healing was, first of all, come to a place that had a slower, simpler pace.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
incredibly helpful. That's exactly what I was looking for. But I also needed to be around women who had maintained marriages, friendships, and families long term and we're still active. And I needed to see that in terms of a value.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing that I think has, yes, the food, absolutely. We're not allowed to put certain chemicals in the food. So naturally, the eating and the things like that have been much different. The natural exercise that comes here, because it's not really an automobile-based kind of life, is the other thing. But I've also found that just in general in the world, not just Seville, a much more open-mindedness about talking about perimenopause. I joined a perimenopause, postmenopause group of women. And the things these women were nurturing me by telling me what their experiences were, people leaving marriages and getting divorced because they didn't know it was perimenopause.
Yeah. I
You,
did
you
that.
know, the absolute torment that we become to ourselves and others when you don't know what's going on. So, in that way, I've also found the healing of availability of information, but
Yeah.
connection with other women. And there has
Mhm.
been a good sense of healing and grief at the same time. And one woman taught me to just grieve beautifully because she said, all of these things happened in my life and no one was talking about it at the time. It was simply that I was old, not valuable, and should have made better decisions. And
Wow.
and today, I just will share this and we press forward, but I thought it was really interesting in the United States, in many of the groups that I'm in, women are having to fight for hormonal care, right?
So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when they do get it, if they're going to pay out of pocket, it's extraordinarily expensive for something that will happen to 100% of women. Okay, anyways, I could get on a tangent, but here, as I started to express what my issues were to my doctor, she said, we need to take some look. We need to follow your path because if you need hormone therapy, we need to get it for you because we don't want your visceral fat to go up. Your cholesterol is going to shoot through the roof, and we don't want you to suffer, right? That was the response here.
That's
And I think to
amazing.
myself, when I said, I have to leave the United States or I will die here, it was at some deeper level of saving my own life.
Well, absolutely, and that's that's very much the angular series playing out, and also Uranus in the first. I mean, I left my marriage during the menopause. I probably, well, I might have done things differently if I'd known that's what I was going through. And so many women make massive life-changing decisions that are driven by their hormones, and they don't realize that's what's going on, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and today it's interesting here too because people will say, "What do you do?" And in the United States, I'm like, "Oh, I'm an astrologer and I do this and I do this." And people ask me, they don't ask me, first of all, what I do. They ask me what my interests are.
Oh,
They
wow.
ask me about how I'm feeling. So I've become a lot more accustomed to. I was telling Martha that somebody was asking me, not too long ago, about myself. And I'm like, well, mostly I eat, I hang out with my kids and my husband, and I moisturize. And I had all of these other things that are me that
Yeah,
had
yeah.
nothing to do with what I produce. And I'm like, the biggest thing I do is show up as a whole individual in my
That's
home
amazing.
and in the
Yeah.
roles I've taken on. But I don't even feel like I was allowed to do that when I was doing it the best I could in the States. My energy
Probably
could.
not. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I didn't look at a relocated chart, you guys. So sometimes I think we're just called and we're pulled towards what will
Yeah.
save our own lives,
Oh,
whether we
absolutely.
know
Yeah.
it. And then you
Yeah.
go back and see the astrology and you're like, oh, well, damn, huh?
Will I bring up the map now for Seville for you?
Yes, let's do
Show you
it.
the planetary lines. Yeah, I'll just share that now next.
Yeah,
Where
brilliant. And you guys, if you're watching, if you're excited about this, if you're interested, if you're getting any kind of value, please hit the like button. It helps the channel, helps the algorithm to know that we're talking about something that is useful to other people. And of course, if you want any information about perimenopause stuff, yeah, that's not my realm, but I will send you a link because I'm like, help for all. That's my new campaign. That's my nurturing there for
Oh,
everybody.
absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, I just have to regenerate it here because I was looking at the transits you were going through.
Yeah, no worries. And for men
Yeah.
too, because men go through, they
Yeah.
survive if you're with them. So, and there's lots of men out there talking about this right now, and I think it's beautiful. So, I'll put links for that, you guys. I'll just do it.
So here is your, can you see this now? Here is your actual map for Seville.
Yes.
So here's Seville here. You have Jupiter trining your IC. So a trine, as I said before, is a very powerful flow of energy. A trine, and then Jupiter is all about expansion. The IC then is all about home. So you're literally 11 miles from that. You're literally sitting on your Jupiter line. And Jupiter lines, I find time and time again, are really good for relocation. They're really good for expansion. Then you've got Mercury squaring your IC. So Mercury would be hugely important for you given that it rules your natal chart. So again, your Mercury line, you are 20 miles from that. Then we talked about the nodes. There's the north node septiling your descendant. So the septile, as I said, it's kind of an internal seeking of creativity. That's got a shorter range. That's got a range of 34 miles. So you're just in range of that. Then you have Neptune undeciling your ascendant. So an undecile is like insight. It's one of the minor aspects as well, as I said, which I cover, and that's going right through Seville. Um, then you also have further over here, you've got the sun quintiling your IC. So you're kind of out of range of that, but it still goes along all of the Algarve area. And the Algarve is very beautiful and very, very holistic part of Portugal and not a million miles from where you're living. Then your other Mercury line here is it's squaring your midheaven here. Square again has a range of 130 miles. So you're well within range of that. So a square is like the road is there, but you have to work to put the traffic on the road. A trine is a really powerful flow of energy where things just are and where things just happen. Um, so it's interesting that it's Mercury and Jupiter that are the strongest lines there for you. So again, it's all about expanding how you communicate in all sorts of ways,
And
which is
how
really
do these
interesting.
lines differ
Yeah,
from my lines in Colorado?
yeah, 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 yeah,
This
yeah,
is these are this is where I think it like gets interesting where it's like, well, what was I doing over here that was lit
yeah.
up that,
Yeah.
we see in the lines as well. So that's something as you guys are going through to consider how
Yeah,
that
to look at
works.
that. Yeah, yeah. So it's interesting that Jupiter and Mercury are the strongest lines, followed by Neptune, because Jupiter, as I said, it's all about expansion. Like Jupiter was trining my IC when I lived through Italy, and everything just opened up for me. Like I was working 9 hours a day as a nanny, but I was also developing photography. I was also selling photos. I was also taking photos. I was learning astrology and seeing clients. I was doing those five things on a Jupiter line because it's very much about things being effortless and expansive. And as I said, like a lot of the free software, it doesn't cover aspects to the descendant or the IC. So you're missing anything to do with the sense of home. Like Jupiter trining the IC obviously would be a very expanded sense of home, everything flowing around home, maybe lots of visitors. Do you have lots of visitors?
We
Not
have
yet.
lots and lots of visitors, and it's funny, we have lots of visitors even when we don't have lots of visitors because where we've chosen to live is directly in the middle of the city, behind one of the biggest tourist attractions in Spain.
Oh, I
So, I
see
mean,
what you
we have
mean. Yeah.
visitors when we watch the pre-performance of the Latin Grammys from our balcony.
That's hilarious.
We have visitors when we don't have visitors. But of course, then we have beautiful people from all of the world who they're ready to come. They're ready to see Seville, come visit with us, these kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Will I have a look at James Joyce's chart next, maybe, or will I do Tennessee Williams?
Well, I'm really, if you're into it, I would
Yeah.
love to see yours.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, of course. I have it here. Yeah, I have my natal chart and I have my relocated chart for Provincetown. Where are we now? I have them here.
Brilliant. And so you are coming from Ireland into Italy, right?
Yeah, but then I went to Massachusetts. So that's a more interesting one because it changes. It's not so much it changes more, but it shows you the importance of home and that. So can you see that there?
Yes, we got it.
So you can see my Venus, my Sun, my Mercury moved to the fourth house and third house, along with my moon moving to the fourth house. So I can honestly say I never felt as home anywhere as in Provincetown. Because Provincetown, it's the LGBTQ capital of the East Coast of the United States. Everybody goes, oh, you can't work there all year round. You can't get accommodation all year round. I did. And remember, I said like people often relocate because they want a deeper sense of community. I never ever felt as connected to a community as I did there. Like the best thing I did there was volunteer in the soup kitchen. I was also part of a playwrights lab. I was also part of a writing memoir group. I was also part of open mics. So, and this again is like a sense of home, with the IC being in Gemini. And what was interesting was with the relocated ascendant moving from Gemini to Aquarius. And again, with Chiron and Ceres in the first, like obviously then all my clients were gay. So one of the themes with seeing clients was helping people heal wounds around being gay and around coming out to their family. Then with Jupiter in the 10th, I did a lot of teaching. Saturn in the 11th, I was seen as kind of the expert in my field. And then remember I said, relocated charts will often generate aspects to the angle. So here you can see a grand trine in fire is generated to the midheaven. Mars is in my first and it creates a trine to my midheaven and then to Uranus. So I can honestly say that living there was like flying over on Concorde and jumping onto a Harley Davidson. Like all I did was say yes to everything.
And how did, for you into saying yes, how was the experience for you? Like, how do you feel like you are reshaped today based on this?
Hugely, as in all my clients are American. Hugely. And I mean, what I loved about America is it's a real sense of go for it. And if you dream big enough, it'll happen. So it very much inspired me to create my own opportunities. Like I had my own radio show, I had my own TV show simply because I walked in and said, can I have a radio show? Oh, okay. So I mean, very often, and I teach my clients this as well, like particularly if people are in the holistic industry and they want to develop their holistic practice, I will tell them, we'll go and offer to give talks in your local libraries. And they'll go, oh, I never thought of that.
Mhm.
So simple. Like sometimes I'd be talking to two people, sometimes I'd be talking to five people, sometimes I'd be talking to 10 people. But I always remember when I was giving a talk in Melrose Library and I rang them. I had to wait 8 months for it. This is a library outside of Boston. And I rang them 2 days beforehand and said, oh, I don't mean to be judgmental, but I don't see any advertising or I don't see anything on Facebook. And they went, oh, well, it's in the interlibrary portal and it's booked out and we've 10 people on a waiting list.
Wow.
So
But it
people don't
is.
realize things like that, that libraries have their own internal system of promotion,
Yeah.
So that's where the sense of community is like, we'll just go and ask.
Mhm. And to have a little bit of that courage to do it. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting though here too in my relocated chart and yours, really how profound Ceres is right
Yes.
there at that ascendant point. That's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
since I don't use that in my practices often, it just seems interesting. Do you see that a lot in people's charts?
Yeah, I see Ceres all the time, Ceres and Chiron, and that's why I work with them because particularly for women's charts, I find they're very much linked to healing and nurturing, and particularly women in their late 40s, early 50s, around about the time of the Chiron return between the age of 49 and 51 is when they either embark on alternative healing or become alternative healers. I see that all the time. And as I said, like as soon as because I was working in Boston first before I went down to Provincetown, but the chart is the same. My very first client was transgender.
Right. So you're very Aquarian, right? You're like, just
Oh yeah, yeah,
listen, if
yeah,
you feel like you're out there, come in
yeah,
here.
yeah. Come in here, yeah, yeah. And you don't have to talk about it and pretend you're not, but that's fine. I'm used to it. And then,
Yeah.
Pluto in the seventh, people telling me deeply transformative stories in their charts. And then Uranus in the sixth was like very much working in an eclectic environment. I worked out of an arts co-working art studio and it worked perfectly,
Oh my
you know
gosh. That's
with all these
brilliant.
artists and painters and writers, and I would just rock in and work in the co-working downstairs and then see clients in the private rooms. And it worked. It's again very, very Uranus in the sixth, so it's like you with your Uranus in the first in where you are now. It's like being an eclectic person, having an eclectic sense of self.
Yeah, and it's interesting here in Seville in particular, because Sevillanos have they have their own sense of style that's even separate from Spain. You go to Madrid or from Madrid, they say, yeah, Seville, like people know Seville. And so it's interesting. I don't look like them in a
Okay.
very stuck out, very Uranian kind of way. And it's
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
very funny. And I laughed because one of the guys is Italian at the cafe we like. And the Sevillana hairstyle is this like pulled back, slicked back bun and or ponytail.
Yes.
And quite regularly, I have none of that. I am like this, right? And I'm
I
like,
love it.
man, Uranus and Sag, just, so even some of these very first house concepts show up in the physical space.
Oh,
And it's also,
absolutely.
it's a staring culture. So they're just fascinated.
Yeah, it's
Just,
like my natal Mars in the 11th is like I'm like a bull in a china shop in groups. I just wade in and want to take over the group. And thankfully, Mars in the first was very tempered by when
yeah,
I was in Provincetown, you know.
yeah, we get a
When
little bit of
Saturn
help.
in the 11th is like I would be the structured person in the group, like Mars in the 11th is terrible. It's just like bull in a china shop isn't the word for it. And what was interesting, like when I was living in Italy, a lot of the women I knew had Mars in the 11th, and I would just sit back and watch them,
Yeah.
head off and say, I need to stay out of this.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I'll say this and then we can check out these other charts, but that you get a view of what your natal placements look like when
In
you
others, yeah.
relocate. Yeah, because I tell you what, here, I've said it 1,000 times, I can touch something and make it make money. And I know that hustler,
I
that
said
girl
that,
boss
yeah.
energy, right? And it's fine to me, but that started to wean out. And as I've been here in Seville, I teach the girl bosses how to girl boss, but maybe in a way that also protects their energy,
Oh, good.
right? Because I can see it now.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot, So it's really interesting to get out of where you're at and see who you've been.
Yeah. 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 Hugely interesting. Yeah. It's fascinating. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got a couple other charts. Let's take a look at
Yeah, I
them.
have will I do Tennessee Williams next?
Yes, let's do
Yeah,
it. Let's
yeah,
do it. And
let's do
this is
that.
just fascinating. And again, you guys, if you're still watching, if you're coming back, you're clicking back in because you needed a potty break, whatever the deal is, please like the video. I would love to have you subscribe, turn on the notification bell. There's a whole new thing going on with the algorithm for sure, where before it was like suggested you should turn on the notification bell, meh, potato, potato. And now if you do not turn on the notification bell, when I'm uploading, you're not going to know about it. And that also hurts the channel when we're not coming together and connecting. So if you like it, you like what we're doing here, subscribe, turn on the bell, and let's do this thing.
Okay, well,
Okay.
here's Tennessee Williams, who was born in Mississippi. And what a lot of people don't realize is he went to Provincetown when he was only 28 or 29, and that's where he wrote some of his most famous work. There's an amazing story about Marlon Brando was given money to go to Provincetown for an audition, and he spent the money, arrived 2 days late, picked up a woman on the way. Arrived in Provincetown. Tennessee William was in one of the beach shacks, and apparently his pipes had burst and his electricity wasn't working. And Marlon Brando rocked up, fixed everything, and got the part. It's a great story.
That's
So you
absolutely
can see
brilliant.
here Tennessee Williams, his Saturn rules his chart because he's Capricorn rising. He's got you
Mhm.
again talking about Uranus in the first house. Moon Mars in the first house. And then you can see then in his relocated chart, Aquarius rules his chart. So Uranus rules it. And then his moon becomes angular, which means like, his emotions are highlighted. And yet the moon in Aquarius is kind of somebody kind of like with a fixed sense of their emotions. Again, talking about Chiron, as Chiron moves into the first, which again would tie in with the fact of being a gay writer moving to Provincetown. His Sun and Mercury stay in the second house, but his Venus moves to the second. And as we know, Venus is linked to, our talents and skills. Venus isn't just beauty and seduction, it's also our value system and our finances. So Venus in his second would very much indicate that it's because I gather, he tended to live with other lovers that looked after him and gave him their houses, and that's very much how he managed financially a lot of the time. Um, so it's interesting to see, when his Jupiter then moves from his 10th to his ninth, and then the ninth, as we know, is all about traveling and publishing and marketing. And his midheaven becomes Sagittarius, which is all about expansion and abundance and traveling and higher wisdom. So, and he's got a notable number of oppositions in his chart. We can see from Mercury and Saturn and Ceres up to between Jupiter and his south node. So there's quite a lot of push, pull, and tension in his
Mhm.
chart. And then, Uranus in the 12th would be very much that he could kind of like quietly be his eclectic self in Provincetown. He lived there on and off, for years and years and years. But as I said, like he was 27 or 28 when he first went there. And that's where he finished some of his most famous work. Is it The Glass Menagerie? There's a couple of other pieces. I can't remember which was the one that he finished there. I think it might have been The Glass Menagerie. But the Provincetown theatre there was quite notable, and it still is. So it's interesting to see that, Venus moving to a second house would really help his finances there. And that his second house, still stays ruled by Neptune. It's ruled by Pisces, which is Neptune. Will I do James Joyce's chart next between Dublin and Trieste?
Yeah, absolutely. But I want to say too with Tennessee Williams, just in case you don't know who that is, we think of his rights of the Glass Menagerie, Streetcar Named
Yeah,
Desire, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, and you can see it in that relocated chart,
yeah,
how it's like this emotionally charged kind of drama. And that's like I
yeah,
think his energy and everything explored the themes of
yeah.
desire, but loneliness, personal freedom, sexual freedom. Like it was all in.
He really explored all the taboo stuff, didn't he? Which is really in line with Pluto in the fifth. Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. So really cool to see it in the
yeah,
astrology. Okay,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, James Joyce then, who is an Irish playwright or an Irish writer who he was born in Dublin, but he lived in Trieste and then in Zurich. Trieste is actually a fabulous city if anybody hasn't been there. I went there once and absolutely loved it. It's in northern Italy. And it's got a very Austrian kind of feel to it because
Mm.
it was part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. So again, like Tennessee Williams, you can see in his natal chart he was Capricorn rising. And in his relocated chart, he's Aquarius rising, which is again like the eclectic sense of self, the eclectic sense of like, I am going to be who I am, whether you like it or not. Um, and you can see his sun moves from being in his first house to becoming angular in his relocated chart in Trieste. Like between Trieste and Zurich is where he finished Ulysses. He lived for a number of years in both places. Um, and then you can see his in his third house, he's Jupiter Neptune, which is kind of a combination that comes along every 12 years when Jupiter, conjuncts Neptune. So that's in the third house, which is your immediate environment, your immediate neighborhood. And he's got Pluto there as well. It moves from his fourth house to his third house. But he's got a lot of Taurian energy in his chart. He's got Saturn in Taurus, Neptune in Taurus, Jupiter in Taurus, Chiron in Taurus, Pluto in Taurus. So when we look at his chart, like almost half his chart is ruled by Venus.
Yeah.
And then, in his relocated chart, his north node becomes angular, his south node becomes angular on the IC. And then his north node is angular up on the midheaven, which again is like what your soul wants to bring in this lifetime to learn and experience.
Which just
Again,
makes me laugh because I think about, some of his, first of all, he was kind of a different writing
oh yeah,
technique at the time and all that relocated
totally.
third where it was like, okay, we're going to challenge this just a
Yeah,
bit and then
yeah,
for it to receive a bit of censorship, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's like, wow, that's
yeah,
really, but the thing
yeah.
I wanted to say is that I think that Taurus energy, the word I always associate with Joyce is legacy, because Taurus can leave beautiful legacy because they're going to build something that lasts forever.
That's
You
a
know,
beautiful description of Taurus.
oh yeah, listen, we don't really want to we don't need to build anything new. We'll build on what's there and God help us, it'll stay forever.
Yeah, that's a lovely way of invoking and describing the Taurus energy. It really is. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, you were going to talk about his Uranus.
No, just that it's in the seventh, which is again, when it trines Neptune, which is very much, um, an eclectic, authentic type of higher creativity. And, I mean, I haven't read Ulysses, but I've read, his short stories. I mean, to me, The Dead is still one of the most beautiful short stories ever written. Have you ever read it? It's about a dinner party and about it's just about a whole dinner party, and then at the end, just I won't spoil it for you, but go read it. It's stunning, and I read The Dubliners, which is his collection of short stories, and I read Portrait of the Artist as a Young Boy. I'm lucky being Irish, growing up with people like James Joyce and Oscar Wilde and W.B. Yeats and Sing, and we kind of just take all those people for granted.
Absolutely. Well, I think unless you're kind of into it and you're naturally a writer and
Yeah,
into that, realizing what was happening and what the new narrative technique he was bringing
yeah,
to the table was, and
yeah,
that the,
it's
the,
huge.
the characters became really complicated because there's the interpersonal
Yeah,
exploration that's happening, and that digs into consciousness and humanity and my
yeah,
identity and just all of
yeah,
these things.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so to realize what's happening in the transition of the writing style is
yeah,
huge. And if you're not into writing, it's kind of like, yeah, it's the guy that wrote the thing, I guess,
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
and then when
yeah.
you
And
can,
it's quite a fixed chart as well, which is interesting, which is like, yeah, I'm really going to do it. And I'm going to bring it out and I'm going to bring it out my way. And I don't care how long it's going to take,
yeah,
because fixed energy is all about that. It's like, yeah, in my time when I'm ready.
yeah, yeah. See, legacy energy to the
Legacy. Yeah,
core.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So this has been absolutely fantastic. And you guys, I would really encourage you, not only to go and visit with Martha, like obviously, like go do that, right? Get some other eyes on things. But if you're also ready and you're at this point in your practice where you're ready to take a leap at it, pull your own relocated chart
Yeah,
and who are you through that? And does that help even as you're listening to my weekly horoscopes or whomever you're following? How does it help listening to a different rising sign for
yeah.
you to
It's
align with
huge.
where you're at? in your life and make, because it's not just the lessons of the soul unfolding. That's great. That's the
Yeah,
evolutionary portion of me, but I'm also a humanistic astrologer. So I always say
yeah,
it's okay, this is what I have, but then humanistic is like, but what am I going to do with it? You know?
yeah,
So we need the practical portion of how can you work with the
yeah,
energy to work smarter, not harder. So I encourage each of you to go pull your relocated chart and
yeah, me too.
see. Yes, you are. Any other tips, suggestions that you can point people
Well,
to?
the main tip and suggestion is to realize that it's the transits you're going through that trigger the desire to relocate. That's huge. I can't emphasize that enough. And also the solar return chart for the year ahead. That's kind of like what your soul wants to bring into your life for the year ahead, which is different to the transit chart because transits are triggered by outside events.
So you want to obviously make sure you have these things,
Yeah,
right? Make
absolutely.
sure you've got your solar return chart. If you don't
Yeah,
have that, lots of
yeah,
links will be provided in the description box down below so that everything you need will be in your toolkit and available. So
yeah.
thank you, Martha. You're
Thank you for
just,
having me.
oh my gosh, please come back
I
and
will.
I'll just sit like this the entire time and you can say
I'd love to.
whatever you would like and I'll just fawn over your accent. It'll be great.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been lovely being here.
Yes, and you have a retreat coming up in case people wanted to go.
Yes, I have it. It's a writing and astrology retreat. I'm doing it with Catherine Hastings in West Cork. It's in a four-star hotel, and all the rooms are single rooms with balcony and sea view. So, Kay helps people embody the ancient art of letter writing. So that's part of the retreat, and also she'll be helping people how to use wax seals, as part of letter writing. And then I will be doing astrology workshops that help people embody the creative planets in their chart, which are very much Venus, Mercury, Neptune, and also the moon. So you can, if you want to know more, you can sign up for a free call on the website, or else you can just go straight ahead and book. And a part payment plan is available as well. And it is less expensive than a lot of retreats that are out there. So it's the 24th to the 28th of September, and it's on the website at marthaclarkastrology.com.
Absolutely brilliant. All right, my beautiful friends, if you have enjoyed this video, please make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe. Definitely. And if you have not checked out what is going on in the weekly cosmos, I would love to point you to the weekly video, which you can check out at the end of this video or also on the home screen. And one more thing, if you have no idea where Ceres is at in your chart or what it is about, Martha brought this up today and it was beautiful. I would love to share some content with you. I'll make sure it's at the end of this video. All right, beautiful friends, we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.